It's time for College Sports Weekly. How do you do, ladies and gentlemen? I'm Bill Hazen. When undefeated Minnesota hosts undefeated Penn State this weekend, it will be the first time both teams carried unblemished records into this game. The Gophers lead the Big Ten West under second-year coach P.J. Fleck, who this week received a significant reward, a contract extension.
A contract is really a result of just tireless effort from so many people. It's not just about the head coach. The head coach is only as good as the people that work for them, period. And I'm a perfect example of that. A perfect example of having an elite staff.
And a number of solid players.
Heather and I take incredible responsibility as parents to be parents to them, not only on the football field as coaches, but parents. I couldn't ask for a better group of young men, and they were huge in this decision. I love coaching them every single day. This is a very fun team. It's a very fun culture. It's very different. But I love these young men. I love them as my own sons. And a lot of times it's at times easy for coaches to pick up and leave and go different places, and these are very, very special people. And I believe in what we can do here at the University of Minnesota because of them, because of the recruits that we have committed, because of our future recruits we will have committed, because of our players now, because of our alum, and because of our players now who will be alum, and have them come back to the culture that's sustainable over a long period of time.
And that's some of what's happening. Here's what's coming up on College Sports Weekly. The Gophers-Lions game isn't the only battle of undefeated teams set for this weekend. Another big one matches LSU at Alabama. Our coach, John Jenkins, sets the stage for these big games, as well as reviewing last week's big moments. Can new USC Athletic Director Mike Bone restore the Trojans to national prominence? Rex Lardner will tell you when we talk shop. Some very good news for Colorado State football coach Mike Bobo, and we'll get the word from the mountain man of sports journalism, Dale Bublitz of the Associated Press. And DeLisio updates football ratings on the small college beat. That's all I had on College Sports Weekly.
Hi, I'm Mia Hamm. As a professional soccer player and a future soccer mom, I know how fun and rewarding sports can be. I also know how frustrating it is when you're sidelined by an injury. So I've teamed up with the American Association of Orthodontists to ask young athletes to play it safe when playing sports. I spent years training to become a world-class athlete. I know what it takes to become an expert on the field. Orthodontists understand this too. They're experts in their field, helping kids and adults obtain healthy, beautiful smiles. They want to help athletes prevent injuries and stay in the game. It only takes a second to get hurt, and too many athletes are risking injury because they're not properly equipped during games and practices. Wear the right protective gear, like mouth guards, face masks, and helmets. Your first line of defense against preventable injuries. Play it safe, achieve your goals, and keep smiling. Visit braces.org.
Hi, this is Bill Hazen with great news. We're growing, and now it's easier than ever for you to keep up with Bill Hazen Productions and the popular radio programming we produce. First, there's our website, BillHazenProductions.com. If you miss a program or part of a program, just go to the site and listen. The current edition of all of our programs is right on the front page. Also, meet the special people who form our broadcast family and make our programs possible. Want to know about guests and topics we'll discuss on our shows? Then join our Twitter feed @BillHazenPro, where you can be part of the conversation and share your thoughts on our programs. So we invite you to join us and enjoy America's most innovative sports broadcasts. You'll find them at our new web address, BillHazenProductions.com. 1 week ago, we went back to the very back end of that train and John Jenkins was sitting back there with the cattle, the hobos, and Dr. Richard Kimball back there at the back end. And he's still looking.
Not too many people know about the fugitive from years ago. I'm telling you, you're really dating yourself, Wild Bill.
No, I know that. All I know is he was still looking for the one-armed man. He didn't give you any advice on that. Had he found him yet, John?
Well, I'll say this. Hey, I've got off that train comfortably. Yeah, coming off them box cars, waving goodbye to my buddies laying in the hay seats. And no, in all seriousness, I got my car off there, drove right down from Orlando, a little bit deeper into the big neighborhood of the SEC here, and I'm comfortably set for a little while longer down at my hangout down here in South Florida. Speaking of Florida, the Florida Gators and Georgia Bulldogs strapped one on. What do you think about that one, Bill?
Florida probably wishes they had gotten off the train with you, John, and hopped right in your car and kept right on going by the time Georgia got done with them. Looks like a nice rebound game for the Bulldogs.
Yeah, I tell you, this was a battle of the heavyweights. It really was. Georgia looked like Georgia that we expected to see pretty much throughout the season, minus the South Carolina game where they screwed up. But you know what? They didn't fall far, with this committee now picking these guys the rest of the way until we go into the playoffs. Hey, the Georgia Bulldogs, they sit there at number 6, so they didn't fall far. And I'll say this. Boy, did they look talented. They really were impressive. On the other hand, Dan Mullen has done an exceptional job of getting his guys at Florida going, particularly working with a backup quarterback much of the season. But you know what? I think Georgia showed them, and it looked like this to me, watching this game from start to finish, that Georgia showed them that you're not there yet. You're not part of the elite yet. You've got a little ways to go. They're close to being the contenders in the SEC once again, but they do have a little ways to go with losing out to Georgia like they did.
And they're not the only ones who have a little way to go. Florida State has a little way to go following their loss against Miami, and the help-wanted shingle is out.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you know what? Manny Diaz there at Miami now. This Miami and Florida State game, what looked like light years away from what we used to see back in the old days of Jimmy Johnson and Bobby Bowden. Hey, this was no semblance whatsoever, people. This is the ugliest part of this business, Bill. The greatest profession in the world, and yet many times the ugliest business. I hate to see any coach lose their job. And Willie Taggart's down the road now, and you know what? There was, the rumor mill for at least a day and a half had Bob Stoops coming out of his XFL gig over in Dallas to come to Florida State. They all had the wrong Stoops. They had the wrong Stoops. It's Mark Stoops. Mark there at Kentucky, he won 10 games, unheard of at Kentucky a year ago. And once again, with respectability, they would be really smart to go after him hard and heavy.
John, Nebraska is having a little bit of a tough time. The new coach in his second year there, Purdue, really tore them up pretty well, 31-27. That was in West Lafayette. Now Nebraska, with 3 more games, likely a loss at Wisconsin. Then after that, let's see, I do have their schedule here in front of me. They will be playing Maryland on the road, and then they have Iowa at home. They could finish below 500 again very easily.
Scott was our coach of the year. He was our coach of the year pick a couple years ago, naturally. And the recruiting as far as our top recruiting efforts, there at Central Florida. Many times, Bill, you can leave and see that mirage beyond, and certainly going back home in his case, sometimes it just don't work out. I hope I'm wrong about this, and I certainly hope that Scott can get this thing off the ground over at Nebraska. And he's a great coach. He and his staff, they're going to work hard, but they got a lot of work to do, don't they?
Yeah, indeed. SMU hit the road, and they're unbeaten season is over at Memphis, and this creates an interesting situation, John, because now Cincinnati is the only undefeated school in the conference as far as conference play is concerned, and the athletic director there, Mike Bone, just took the job at USC.
Yeah, what a great game that was. I tell you, Sonny Dykes, Buechele, his quarterback, hey, he's a seasoned guy. That transfer that came from Texas, he is a smart operator, doesn't make stupid mistakes, particularly on first downs. He gets bottled up. Hey, he'll throw it away. He'll throw it up in the stands and hit some poor lady in the face with the ball. And he'll come right back on 2nd and 10, and he'll march right down with a first down and pick right back up where they left off instead of doing things stupid. And conversely, Memphis, very talented offense as well. Isn't it typical, Bill? Isn't it typical when you're swapping ends of the field on each other, trading scores, something like a special teams mistake, or in this case, a special teams touchdown on a kickoff in the second half by a kick return by Memphis breaks this thing wide open.
Yeah.
So many times you see that. You think you got two real good offenses matched up against each other. They're going back and forth, and then all of a sudden it's something like an interception or it's a picked up fumble or it's a kick return or blocked kick that really opens the game up, and that's what did it for Memphis.
Well, I seen Illinois now 1 game away from getting a bowl bid. Oh, my goodness. The Fighting Illini are going crazy down there in the cornfields, John. It just goes to show you.
Hey, Lovey's gritting his teeth. One more. Just give me one more. I'll tell you, boy, have they come a long way since the Eastern Michigan game, huh?
Oh, yeah, as we like to say here, and if you've heard any of my material, you know it's true, John. All of the corn in Illinois is not in the ground. Always remember that.
Oh, boy, I'm telling you that.
Yeah, you've heard enough. You know the answer to that one, brother. You know the answer to that one. John, let's go ahead and hold it right here. We'll come on back, and we'll look at this weekend's games coming up, and that will be next. John Jenkins with us, standing by. Rex Lardner, he's stepping to the microphone, ready to go, and we'll visit with him next on College Sports Weekly.
Founded in 1962, the National Collegiate Baseball Writers Association is dedicated to the advancement of college baseball. Membership includes writers, broadcasters, and publicists of the sport. NCBWA members serve as the voting body for the Dick Howser Trophy National Player of the Year. The organization has a website at ncbwa.com, or you can follow us on Twitter at ncbwa.
Time to talk shop once again, and in steps Rex Lardner, longtime television sports executive with CBS, NBC, and Turner Broadcasting. And Rex and I have one thing in common. We've both held the door for Ted Turner, and what a thrill that was, ladies and gentlemen.
Absolutely. And all the stories you've heard about Ted Turner, Bill, are true, no matter what they are.
Yeah, well, I've heard enough of them, I'll tell you that. Rex, also a former associate commissioner at Conference USA, and he consults the broadcast industry, professional sports, and college sports entities from Tucson, Arizona. All right, Rexter, let's get at it here. Big news from Tinseltown, Rex. USC is hiring its new athletic director, and it's interesting here. They've decided on University of Cincinnati AD Mike Bone. This is an interesting choice, Rex. Why did he get the job?
Bill, I think a couple of things. One is he has a proven track record as a very good administrator. That's what USC needs. I mean, the last two ADs they've had, Pat Hazen and Lynn Swan, have great pedigrees, but, they're former players with limited administrative experience. And I think the athletic director in today's day and age is someone that has a staff that helps work with him and the particular coaches they have. And you've got to have a lot of athletic administration experience. And I think Mike has done a great job at Cincinnati, and he has a long line of credits, and I think he's a good choice.
Cincinnati, you mentioned them, Rex. That's one of the more quiet success stories in college football the last couple of years. Here they are again this year. They're 6-1, and with SMU taking it on the chin at Memphis this last week, Cincinnati is now the only undefeated team left in the AAC, conference-wise. But even though the Bearcats have been playing under the radar for many, Rex, that didn't include the folks at USC. They had kept an eye on them. Your thoughts?
I'm sure the USC people have done their research and looked at a lot of different kinds of combinations to try to settle on the right choice. And I think he's the complete opposite of Pat Hazen and Lynn Swann and has all that administrative background. So I think it's going to be a good choice for USC.
It occurs to me, Rex, as I think about this, that Mike Bohn does indeed have a wide range of experience. Look at the things he was involved in Cincinnati, the renovation of Nippert Stadium. He may not have been there in the beginning, but he was a part of that. And that stadium, if you've seen it, is now one of the most modern and beautiful in the country. And everybody has really grabbed hold of that place. They redid the basketball arena, too. That's been upgraded, and that was done under Mike's watch. Did this have any impact on USC's decision?
Oh, absolutely, Bill. It's a great point. I remember going to Nippert Stadium 20 years ago, and it was just awful. And the basketball situation needed some retooling also. And Mike has done a great job at both. And I think, as we've talked often, Bill, the facilities on a campus are almost next to playing time very important for a young recruit. And I think if they're state-of-the-art or something close to that, it's going to really help your recruiting. And I think they're counting on that at USC as well.
Listen to this one, Rex. It took a while for USC to find the guy they wanted for this job. There's an interesting industry newsletter called the Pac-12 Hotline, and I was reading through it, and it suggested in there that both USC and UCLA have a problem in their key hires because there are a number of top-tier candidates that just don't want to live in Los Angeles. What's going on here? I thought everybody wanted to live in Southern California. What's the thinking here, Rex?
Bill, I think it has changed over the years. In many respects, people still want to live in California. But I think the difference is today, the cost of living is just through the roof. And I think if you're a middle-income person, you can't afford it anymore. And that's part of the reason. And the other is the traffic. And I think we experienced that about a month ago, Bill, when I visited my sister's home in Thousand Oaks, California. It's an hour north of L.A.
Yes.
And it was bumper to bumper, on 101 and many of the other highways, no matter what time of day. And so I think those are two negatives, but I think there's so many more positives to working with a school like USC or UCLA, including the warm weather and so forth and so on. Those are the negatives. I think people still want to move to LA, maybe not quite as many.
Boy, Thousand Oaks is pretty well out there. That at one time is where the Dallas Cowboys trained and where Johnny Wooden held his summer basketball camp.
Bill, we went right by Pacific Lutheran University, which is where they had the practices, I believe.
Yeah.
The Cowboys.
Yeah, absolutely. How does Mike Bohn move USC back up to the front of the line in the Pac-12?
Well, Bill, I think the most important thing is dealing with the coaches and the recruiting process. That is so critical and so important. I think the other thing is, Bill, is dealing with fundraisers.
There's a rumor out there that Urban Meyer is first on USC's wish list for a head football coach. Is that likely?
Bill, I think they're going to really make a pitch for him, but I don't know if he would accept it anymore because of his health. I mean, he's had a number of health issues, as you know, both at Florida and Ohio State, and I don't know if it's in his best interest to continue to coach. He obviously has a position at Ohio State now under Gene Smith and so forth, and helping with a lot of the administrative work and so forth, and probably helps the recruiting process as well. And he's also now an announcer for Fox. And really does a pretty good job of it. So my sense is he's pretty well set. If the doctors clear him for his health, I think then he will go back into coaching.
Rex, we're starting to see some football coaches getting the pink slip now. This week, Florida State, of course, is looking for a new coach. Willie Taggart was relieved of his duties after just 21 games at the helm. Taggart succeeded Jimbo Fisher when he jumped to Texas A&M. And, a lot of people thought Taggart was going to be a great fit at Florida State. Why didn't it work out?
Bill, I think a couple of reasons. One is, as you know, many times offensive coordinators and defensive coordinators just do not make good head coaches. And I think being a head coach at a smaller school is so different than being a head coach at a major power with all the pressures and all the problems and fundraisers and fans being skeptical. I mean, the fact that Florida State, Bill, finished 5-7 last year, did not go to a bowl game for the first time in 30 years or whatever it was, was enough. And I think losing to Miami and now having a losing record at 4-5 is just too much. And I think part of it is maybe he wasn't the right fit. It was too overwhelming a job. He upset a lot of different people. And I think a combination of reasons made it for his dismissal.
You know, the Seminoles are going to be on the hook for some pretty big coin here, Rex, to buy out the contract, somewhere around $20 million, as I understand it. Will Florida State be able to recruit a top coach?
Oh, I think so, Bill. I think there are a lot of great young coaches, the Lincoln Riley types, who was at Oklahoma, who was a coordinator at East Carolina. You know, and Bob Stoops and the staff saw something there and elevated him to be offensive coordinator, and then obviously he became head coach when Stoops retired. But I think there are a lot of young people like him available, Bill. And sometimes there are very good offensive and defensive coordinators who want to take that next step and will do well as a head coach. So I think there's a lot of people out there. The rumors here, Bill, are that Kevin Sumlin is in trouble too. The University of Arizona started 4-1, and they lost 4 straight games and got murdered by Oregon State at home last Saturday. And they were talking about in the paper that similar to Taggart, he would have an incredible buyout too. He has 3 years left in his contract at a lot of money, $16 million.
Man. This last weekend, Rex, was very tough on DirecTV viewers who wanted to watch ESPN. According to reports, the ESPN signal just kept tearing up. I saw some video of it. Somebody recorded some of it and put it up on the internet. It had a number of digital artifacts, Rex. It was almost unwatchable. The audio was fine. There was nothing wrong with the audio, but you couldn't watch it. This problem was specific to DirecTV only. Care to speculate on what might have happened here, Rex?
You know, Bill, sure. My wife and I were at a sports bar last Saturday afternoon getting ready for the Notre Dame Virginia Tech game, and we saw all the TVs breaking up. You know, they used DirecTV and they were breaking up, and then they would come back and so forth and so on. And I think it has something to do with the satellite that they used. There was some interference of some sort. It finally got better, Bill, later in the afternoon. We were able to watch most of the Notre Dame game without any interruptions like that.
Rex, I'm curious how this plays out financially. Will either ESPN or DirecTV seek a financial adjustment based on this technical issue?
You know, Bill, I think so. I really think they will, because I think people are paying good money for DirecTV to watch sports, specifically watch live sports. And I think it happened over, a couple of hours, Bill, as I remember. It was unsettling maybe for an hour and a half before they finally got it fixed. So I sense there'll be some kind of settlement relative to ESPN and to DirecTV.
And the advertisers will certainly be involved in that, won't they?
Absolutely, Bill, without question. Like many things that you get a guarantee, as we've talked before, then they're going to get a rebate of some sort.
All right, here's a story, Rex, we teased from last week. About 2 years ago, college football programs were advised to upgrade their football schedules so that they might fare better in their positioning for the bowl season and possibly for the CFP, College Football Playoff. Now we're beginning to see the results, and it doesn't look all that good. West Virginia was very aggressive in upgrading their schedule, but you know what? The results haven't been that good. It turns out you have to win those games. And guess what? That's easier said than done, Rex. What's the answer here?
You know, Bill, I don't know if there is one. I think in West Virginia's situation, they overdid it. You know, maybe too much upgrading. And the irony of the whole thing, Bill, is that from years ago when the first and second week of the season in early September, the major powers had their cupcake schedules. Now, because strength of schedule is so important to get into the playoffs, the college football playoffs, you have so many great games the first and second weekend. But what I've noticed is, Bill, is the patsies come in mid-season or towards the end of the group. You know, there's a Alabama versus West Alabama, that kind of thing. that comes into play in early to mid-November.
Yeah, just before Auburn. Either just before Auburn, I think is the word you slot that.
I think you're right. Yeah, I mean, it's funny. Clemson's schedule last week was Wofford.
Well, West Virginia athletic director Shane Lyons found out firsthand what it's like to be out there on the limb by himself. You know, West Virginia took the bull by the horns. Let's go. Then they got out on the limb. They looked, but where did everybody go? Nobody followed him out there. So Lions, he's not too thrilled with the results here. What is the lesson here, Rex?
Schedule within your own means. In other words, maybe upgrade your schedule a little bit, but don't overdo it. All the major Power 5 schools, have some kind of a situation where they have a patsy or a cupcake or someone somewhere within that week.
A cupcake. I know where that terminology came from, Rex.
You sure do.
I know the guy. I know the guy who came up with that one. And believe me, Al McGuire always had St. Leo's on the schedule. Believe me, there was always space for him in there somewhere. Oh, brother.
Cupcake you.
Cupcakes and aircraft carriers, seashells and balloons. Al McGuire. Oh, man. Well, Rex, a lot of fun as always. We will see you next week.
Sounds great, Bill. Really enjoyed it.
Me too. Me too. Rex Lardner, We Talk Shop. We do this every week at this space, and we talk about the things that athletic people are talking about at the water cooler. We'll be back with more of College Sports Weekly. The sport of college football continues to show attendance declines, and nowhere is there a greater problem in this area than in the West. And we're going to dig into it, find out a little bit about it. From the mountain man of sports journalism at his post in Denver, breathing the rarefied air of Colorado, we turn to Dale Bublitz of the Associated Press. Here's the story, Dale, and that has to do with the fact that the Pac-12 has been suffering at the gate. And I want you to get into some of the factors that may contribute to some of this, and there are a lot of them which have. What sticks out in your mind?
Number one is winning. I saw the first poll. Oregon is ranked number 7 in the country. But look at the rest of the schools. There's been a lot of losing in this conference.
Utah's had a good year, but they're not starting from a dominant position.
But again, they're winning. They've beaten some very good teams, and unlike the Arizona schools, they're not winning football. There isn't winning football there. There isn't winning football at Cal or Stanford. You've got to win to fill seats, and they're not doing it.
Dale, you've heard moaning and groaning about the kickoff times for some of these games in order to favor television. How much of a factor is that?
A large one. And I've seen games that start at 8 o'clock we're here in Colorado. People don't want to, come to a game it's 30 degrees or colder, and it's 8 o'clock at night, and they're getting home at close to midnight.
Especially if they're close by. What about for those guys that are coming from the other side of the range and coming over? They have a long drive.
Well, you're exactly right. They've got fans all the way to eastern Utah because there's some Utah players from there, and it's just not favorable for them, and it's not fan accommodating.
Yeah. Dale, let's talk a little bit about some very good news for Coach Bobo at Colorado State. Some surprising news, too. What has happened to Colorado State in recent weeks here?
Well, besides the 3-game winning streak, Mike Bobo's pretty much assured that he's going to be back next year. He's got 3 years on his contract. This was his 5th year, and they're playing competitive football.
Actually, the teams along the Front Range generally are having collectively a pretty good year, except, of course, for Colorado.
Exactly right. Air Force and Wyoming have already assured themselves bowl games with their record. They've already won 6 games, and Colorado State is at 4-5 right now with 3 games to go.
Well, let's take a look at Mel Tucker here. Reality has hit him. Colorado got out of the gate early with a bunch of wins. Actually, it pretty much mirrored what happened last year before this season, and the same thing has happened to Mel Tucker. What do we have there?
Well, again, that program was 3-6. This is almost a repeat of the last 2 years of McIntyre, the coach that preceded him. They could lose out and finish 3-9.
Mel Tucker came in and said, hey, I'm coming out of the SEC. I've seen how they do it in the big leagues, and I'm going to bring that here. How has that experiment worked?
It hasn't worked at all. Mm-hmm. It's not a physical team. They play pretty physical football in the SEC. Mm-hmm. It hasn't reached its players, and it hasn't reached the field for them. They haven't been able to play physical football with the teams they've played.
What are you hearing on recruiting, Dale? Because obviously that's going to be an answer for Mel Tucker. He's going to have to go ahead, get the type of player that he wants in there. How far is he in that process?
Well, it's a repeat of the Mike McIntyre program and a couple of coaches preceding those two. They're losing the top Division I players. They're not staying in state.
Dale, let's talk a little bit. You mentioned Wyoming and Air Force. I think this is turning into an awfully good year for Wyoming, generally top to bottom. And when you look at the performance of Craig Bowl as head coach there, actually, Craig is having a very good run, don't you think?
Well, it all started with that stunning upset of Missouri to start the season. Mm-hmm. He's lost a couple of games, but he's been competitive there, and he's just played very well. And he's played very well at home, which excites the Cowboy fans. And
he inherited a situation where they were not locked in. How many years is it now, Dale, that they have been able to get a bowl bid? And, that keeps the Wyoming fans active. It gives them somewhere to go in the middle of winter. That's certainly not bad. They got to love that.
They've been to 3 bowls in his 5 years. They didn't go last year, but definitely they'll be going this year. He's got a very good outlook on his resume to appeal to some of the bowl people.
Let's go down the stretch here now, Dale, as far as the Pac-12 is concerned. Perhaps the biggest surprise to me is how tough of a year Washington State has had. For Mike Leach, this has been an awful year. Also, let's note that Arizona has now, lost 3 or 4 in a row, and I'm hearing some tom-toms beating in Tucson regarding that situation. How does it look to you?
Bill, I think the Wolves are going to come after him. He's probably going to lose 2 more games in the rest of the year.
So that being Kevin Sumlin, of course, who is in his 2nd year of coaching there. Sumlin is a good recruiter, though, Dale. He definitely can get players. I think young players react very positively to him. Somebody had to inherit the mess that was Rich Rod. There, we have to be honest about that. You can't just snap your fingers and turn that around.
Boy, certainly. We'll look at the track record for Rich Rod. Whoever follows him always has a big-time mess. Yeah. And there were big-time problems at Arizona. But Arizona has shown some signs of doing some good things this year, but they haven't done it the second half of the season.
Anyway, as always, Dale, it's good to visit. I hope all is going very well for you as you continue a number of assignments with the Associated Press. We invite everybody to look for your byline on various stories on AP, and of course, we'll have you back in a few more weeks.
And remember, Bill, in the Pac-12, good seats are still available.
Yeah. Thank you very much. I'll be sure to check that out right now. There are a few limited good seats are still available. Dale Bublitz of the Associated Press, the guy we know as the mountain man of sports journalism. When we return, Gene DeLisio covers the small college beat next on College Sports Weekly.
You don't usually get a stock tip from a 16-year-old, but I'm here to tell you about a different kind of stock. It's called Better Futures, a stock for social change that's not about making money. Instead, you invest to help students like me go to college, which ends up making the future better for all of us. My name is Alicia, and I'm your dividend.
Invest in better futures with UNCF. Visit uncf.org/invest. A mind is a terrible thing to waste, but a wonderful thing to invest in. Brought to you by UNCF and the Ad Council.
Time now to check out the Small College Beat, where Gene DeLisio updates the college football rankings. Gene?
Bill, the FCS football rankings for this week. Number 1 team in the nation remains North Dakota State. James Madison second, and Weber State now number 3. And they're also in first place in the Big Sky after a big 36-17 win over Sacramento State. Monmouth enters the FCS top 25 this week after a 45-21 win at 5th-ranked Kennesaw State. Now, Monmouth coach Kevin Callahan spent a lot of time preparing for this ball game.
Well, it's something that, we started working on last winter and all through the spring. We actually worked a little bit of defense against this offense in spring practice. We did it again during camp and spent the best part of our bye week on it. So, this is a very difficult offense to get ready for. They've got some very, very fast players, some talented kids, and you've got to spend more than 3 days getting ready. And we just hope that we had a good plan. And I think by what happened out here today, we got to believe in what we did.
Monmouth football coach Kevin Callahan. The Hawks are now 7-2. In the NCAA Division II rankings for this week, Valdosta State number 1, Ferris State second, Minnesota State is third. Indianapolis falls from number 7 to 16 after losing to Lindenwood 34-27. Another big win for Lindenwood football coach Jed Stugart.
For the first time in a lot of years, that a game that had implications, and to have these kids, they have been working so hard. Their goal is to be a conference champion. This was a major step in that direction. And to see them just come out, and our week of practice was awesome. Everybody was focused, and from start to finish, even with some mistakes and some turnovers in the first half, they just kept grinding. And so to take a lead, that's up there. And like I said, I think all my top 5 wins. This is another one. So excited about these guys.
Lindenwood football coach Jed Stugart. Lindenwood is now 6-3, and they've won 6 of their last 7 games. The NCAA is making a change in its procedure for the Division III tournament, so the teams from the same conference will not meet in the opening round of the playoffs. Since Division III moved to its current playoff format in 1999, there have been 10 first-round matchups involving schools from the same conference, all 10 involving teams from the American Southwest Conference and the Northwest Conference. The change only applies to first-round games. Conference foes could still face each other in the second round. Let's take a look at the NAIA Division I men's basketball poll. Number 1 team in the nation is Georgetown of Kentucky. The Masters College of California is second. Wayland Baptist of Texas ranked number 3. Now, Georgetown met Kentucky in a preseason game this week. Kentucky won that ball game 80-53. It was a good experience for Georgetown coach Chris Briggs.
For sure. That makes us better. We just played a basketball game and thought we played tough, but we played a game and had 4 assists. So you're not going to win many games with 4 assists. And, our guys competed, but a lot of times we're kind of throwing up crazy shots when we should be pitching to the open man and things like that. And I know we're playing Kentucky. They're really talented and felt like we defended well, we rebounded well, we showed toughness. So now, the things we got to fix are simple fixes once we're not playing people like Kentucky.
Georgetown of Kentucky men's basketball coach Chris Briggs. St. Vincent's of Pennsylvania is promoting assistant Terrence Smith to the position of men's basketball coach. Smith is the second leading scorer in St. Vincent men's basketball history. He has assisted in the St. Vincent's program for the last 5 seasons. He also spent 12 years in the U.S. Army, serving in Iraq and Afghanistan, and has a doctorate in project management. Rick Wesley back for his 16th season as the men's basketball coach at Grand Valley State. He has a rather unusual team this season with 6 freshmen and 4 transfers.
I haven't really thought about our opponents that much because we do have so many new guys. It's gone well, I think. Some of our new guys are veteran guys. We have 3 Division I transfers and 1 junior college transfer. I think that's right. So, they're older. They've been through practices before. Each one of them have had some good experiences with good programs. So they've been good learners. I think it's gone pretty well. They've seemed like they've slid right in there. I think the biggest thing is all four of those guys, the older guys, have great attitudes. They're no ego guys. They don't come in thinking that they've got all the answer. Their goal has been to come in and fit in, and they've done a very nice job of that.
Grand Valley State men's basketball coach Rick Wesley. Dan Evans taking over the men's basketball program at North Georgia. Evans spent the last 6 years as head coach at Ohio Dominican. He is also a former assistant at Hillsdale and played college basketball at Lawrence. The Middle Atlantic Conference will realign in the fall of 2020. The addition of Stevens and York will increase conference membership to 18 schools, and the MAC will split into 2 divisions with 9 teams each. The MAC Commonwealth will consist of Albright, Alvernia, Eastern, Hood, Lebanon Valley, Messiah, Stevenson, Widener, and York, while the MAC Freedom will include Arcadia, Delaware Valley, DeSales, Fairleigh Dickinson Florham, Kings, Lycoming, Misericordia, Stevens, and Wilkes. Bill, that's our small college sports update for this week. I'm Gene DeLisio reporting.
Thank you, Gene. We'll check in once again next week. And when we return, back to John Jenkins and a look at this weekend's big games next on College Sports Weekly.
I love being a part of Action Team.
For more than a decade, Major League Baseball players and action teams of high school students have been working together to train and inspire the next generation of volunteers.
It's one of the best feelings in the world.
Just that simple act is transforming someone else's life.
All-star Giancarlo Stanton and Chris Capuano join Action Team captains to make a difference in their communities.
It'll just make you feel so good about yourself.
I'd do anything to convince you just to be a part of this.
For more information, go to actionteam.org.
It is time to get our thinking caps on. Coach John Jenkins rejoins us from the big neighborhood, and boy, we have some big ball games coming this weekend to look at. John, there is one game, obviously, that stands out, a battle of undefeateds in the SEC. Alabama at home against an LSU team that looks fit as a fiddle and a quarterback who is drawing an awful lot of attention. Is it fair to say this is a battle of the 2 best quarterbacks in the country as well?
Well, I'll say this, Bill. The enthusiasm at LSU is different now than it has been in recent years going into the Alabama game. Hey, they have matched up against Alabama at different positions, head-to-head, nose-to-nose, and yet they always come up short with some quarterbacks that can't make plays. And a conservative offense being reliant on the defense and special teams to try to win for them against Alabama, and they get beat and they get pounded. And then other teams get a hold of them, like Troy State and some of those others that really irritate the fans. But I tell you what, I have not seen enthusiasm down there in South Louisiana in so many years because of Burrows, the top quarterback, who right now is the Heisman favorite with his performance week in and week out. Has been superb. Hey, they are coming in there to Tuscaloosa with victory on their mind, and certainly Tui is coming off of a high ankle sprain that Coach Saban said that, hey, he's practicing. He looks like maybe ready to play, but he's not at full strength. And so doesn't the complexion change here? When LSU can come in there and, gosh, dog, I tell you what, those Alabama State troopers, they better barricade the roads. They're going to try to fill. They're going to try to fill that stadium up with gold and purple if they're not careful.
Oh, absolutely.
Hey, I tell you what, this is going to be a wild affair. It's going to be a great game to watch. This is the fun part of college football here, Bill.
John, when Alabama lost to Clemson a year ago, in the post-game remarks, Alabama's head coach said that the matchups he was worried about most were in the defensive secondary. He didn't think that Alabama matched up well personnel-wise. I really wonder if that isn't going to be the focus of this game right there for LSU.
Yeah, they've got talented receivers. And as mentioned, the quarterback, hey, he's a pro. He is headed for the NFL. And he's got the scheme now at LSU to go wide open and get the ball down the field. This is going to be a fun game to watch. In contrast to the Clemson game. And, hey, speaking of Clemson, real quickly, Bill. Hey, they're sitting there out of the top 4 right now. National champion, undefeated. They're undefeated. They are not in the top 4. But you know what? They're not worried about it. They're sitting there number 5 because LSU or Alabama, somewhere in there's going to be a loss attached to one of those.
Yep.
And they're probably going to fall out. Clemson will replace them.
Let's take a look at Texas at home against Kansas State. And right now, Kansas State is having a superb year under their rookie coach, Chris Kleiman. This guy is a good football mind, I think, John.
Yeah, Coach Kleiman, it's interesting. He could very well follow in the footsteps of Bill Snyder because, Bill had to be totally reliant on filling his roster year in and year out with junior college players in spots. And this guy's having to do the same thing. And, it showed that this was reflective early in the season when they had a lot of injuries. They had their entire starting linebacking unit out. I'm talking about out, completely out with injuries. Then they started getting back, and they beat Oklahoma. The top pro prospect, Cody Fletcher's back. He's going full guns. They're coming into Austin, Texas with a full head of steam. And I tell you what, the TCU Horned Frogs put it on Texas. And, here again, this late in the year, we get the committee starting to pick and rank these teams. We're looking at Kansas State right there at number 16 in the country. Nowhere can you find Texas anywhere in sight in the top 25.
Yeah,
and with all that preseason hype, all that preseason hoopla, they are out of it. And they've got their backs against the wall, and they've got some pride and that they're going to have to fight for, and it's going to be tough. It's going to be an interesting game.
John, here's a game in the Big Ten that normally we wouldn't pay much attention to, but Minnesota remains undefeated, and they will have Penn State coming to Minneapolis. This is going to be a big ball game for both of these teams. There's a lot riding on it, and P.J. Fleck just signed a new contract, so I think everybody's feeling real good up there in the land of 10,000 lakes.
Hey, you know what, Coach Fleck? They better get him under contract, or Northern Illinois will pluck him away. They'll offer him some new barbed wire there in his neighborhood. But hey, in all seriousness, Bill, let me say this. Hey, Minnesota players, they're looking at this and they say, hey, what's the difference in our undefeated team? And we're sitting there ranked 17 in the country. Penn State's undefeated, and they're number 4. Hey, where's this coming from? Let's show them what we're all about.
Yeah.
This is fun. It's got a battle of the undefeateds, but it's from one top of the scale down to the bottom of the scale in the top teams in the country.
Michigan's last 3 games, John. This week, Michigan State at home. That's at the Big House.
Yeah.
Then they hit the road to face Indiana, which is already bowl eligible and is having an exceptional year. They are at 7 wins already. This is the best IU team we've seen in a while. And then, of course, Ohio State. But that will also be at the Big House, John.
Yeah. They're looking down the barrels here at some opposition that's just not going to lay down for them, are they?
Yeah. No, it's going to be tough.
That's the fun part of this game. It is you don't lay those press clippings down and say, hey, wait, you need to cooperate here. It says we're a 3-touchdown favorite over you guys. Hey, that's the way it goes. They're going to play the game and find out. Having to face Indiana, Ohio State, Michigan, they've got it to do. And Mark D'Antonio, you think he's going to lay down? In-state rival. Boy, he's had his share of victories over Michigan. Jim Harbaugh, I tell you what, he had a great game against Notre Dame. Guess what? The parade's over with. Get ready for the next one.
Yeah, they're hungry. Everybody is hungry at this time of the year. In fact, I'm getting a little hungry myself, John. So,
oh, there you go. Well, hey, the drifter here. I can go for a little chicken salad myself here.
Now you're talking. Tuna's my flavor, so we can.
There you go. I'll do that too, Bill.
Oh, that's.
Keep that svelte look as you walk along the waterfront up there around Northwestern University. Just don't slip and fall on the ice.
Yeah. Oh, man. Well, a lot of fun, John. We'll check in with you once again next week.
All right, buddy. Hey, enjoy the games, and I'll talk to you again next week, Bill.
Let's go get him, John Jenkins, the High Plains Drifter of college football. And we'll be back with more of College Sports Weekly. Time to head for home. Roger Penske's shocking purchase of the Indianapolis 500 has college athletics buzzing. Might it help college athletics? The story next week.
And now let's introduce our team. The executive producer is Keith Haney. Coordinating producer Bo Carter. Small college editor Gene DeLisio. And a special thanks to sports information officers throughout the country for their contributions to this program. Now, this is Bill Hazen saying thanks for being with us. Be sure to tell your friends about us. And we'll see you next week on College Sports Weekly.